Ah, oh, my mic was up. That's, oops. Hello, and, welcome to the Ghost of You stream. I've been really excited to play this one on stream. It's a very text-based game, um, and the writing is actually quite fantastic, and I really enjoy it, and it's been something, um, that I've, come back to and played again and again a couple times. Sometimes just replaying the same route over and over. I just really enjoyed it. It was really fun, and the music is also something that's a part of this game that I really enjoy. So I hope that is audible, but I also hope that it isn't too loud. I don't want it to overpower my own voice, which is quite soft and you know not not exactly difficult to overpower with music, but the music I feel like is important to this stream, so I didn't want to lose it. So just let me know if it's too loud. I'm just generally all around excited. It is, again, as I said, it is going to be very text based, so it's going to be a lot of reading, or at least I'm going to be doing all the reading, and well, I imagine that you can just sort of tap out and listen along, um, unless you want to read along, which is I would never condone that or condemn that. I do condone that. Reading is quite good for you, actually. Um, so I'm not going to wait too much longer and get this on the road. Ever since you can remember, you have always loved music. The bright, booming sound of the brass, the passion of the players behind each instrument. You love the vibration from the strings, the sound of tenors and falsettos. In every way, in even more ways than those, you have always loved music, and you have always wanted to be a part of a symphony. As well as your dream of being a part of a symphony, you have always dreamed of performing at a symphony hall, too. You are no stranger to the passions of playing an instrument. You love the sensation of your violin strings against your fingers. It is something you relish, something you truly get lost in, and only in your nightmares do you experience the sheer terror of losing your hands or fingertips. You have lost count of the songs that pluck at your own heartstrings. Learning at a young age has served your ambition well. The opportunities to see a symphony have passed you by time and time again. They are sporadic in their arrivals to the nearest city, and even then you have not been able to bring yourself to attend. You have felt deeply anxious about going. The anxiety has been present for many reasons, one being that you have felt frightened at the idea that it may not live up to your passionate expectations, or secondly, that it may even go above and beyond them, only serving to fuel a dream that you might not yet obtain. Hello! I'm very excited to do this stream. I've actually been excited to do it um, ever since I played the game the first time, which was quite a while ago. You feel as though you cannot win with your mental state right now. It has dragged you down to the darkest abyss. After the year you've had, the last thing you need is something else in your life to break. But tonight is a special case, a momentous occasion in your history, for better or worse. Tonight, you have been invited by your best friend to a symphony, the opening night of a symphony hall in town that you thought abandoned until recent refurbishments began taking place out of the blue. But not only that, your best friend, Alyssa, is in the performance. It is her first performance at somewhere so prestigious, and it is eager for you to see her on stage. It's so wonderful. She is able to bring a +1, and she has chosen you. She has promised you the privilege of being able to go backstage, of getting to meet those in the small symphony group she finds herself in, and really, you know that the thrill of such an unexpected opportunity is far too great to miss for your own anxiety or fear. I love Alyssa. She's my favorite character. What an adorable little thing. You steel yourself for a week solid, mentally preparing through your grief and social anxieties. You feel very nervous, but undeniably excited. Tonight, you get ready faster than ever before. At the moment in time, you are stood in the hovel of your bedroom, or at least, you think it is still a bedroom, between the paper sheets of your music compositions, the disheveled bed sheets and on your mattress, old food containers and bereavement cards. You don't really blame yourself being able to find the motivation to tidy up after yourself. There is even a photo album on the floor that you accidentally knocked with your foot as you groggily stood up today. But you shake your thoughts free from your head, as tonight is the night you have been waiting for. Tonight, you have finally gotten yourself out of bed, kicked aside these looming sheets of paper and this week's fifth can of something or other, and moved your favorite three pictures on your desk side table out in front a little more, almost in a way where they can watch over you. You decide to take a long, warm bath first. It clears your mind, at least slightly, of some of the worry and sadness you've had over the past few weeks. And as you return to your messy room, you dress up as smartly as you possibly can. After you are dressed, you throw on your well-worn red shawl over your jacket. It is very cold this time of year, and you want to look as formal as possible without freezing to death. Before you leave, you toy with the idea of stopping to take one last look around your bedroom, just to see if there's anything you forgot, or perhaps just to soak in the fact that this is the first time you've left your flat properly to somewhere that isn't the village store in almost 6 months. Will you look around your bedroom, or will you proceed straight to the symphony hall? Of course, we're going to look around. You decide to take one more look around the room before you head off. You aren't in any rush, anyway. You're a couple of hours early from the show's starting time, and you'd like to get your bearings a little more before being thrown back into the company of others. Poor baby. She's had such a rough time, this poor thing. You flick on the light of your flat once more, and walk around your bedroom. The rose pink of your walls have never looked less appealing to you than they do now, before you go attend the symphony. You sigh and run a hand through your hair. Your eyes are immediately drawn to several objects. You decide to take a look at the pictures on the table. You decide to look at the photographs that you have placed on your table in small frames. Before you stand three small monochrome pictures in embossed silver frames. One is you and Alyssa Durante, stood with your arms mutually around each other's shoulders and smiling for the camera. One is of you and your now ex-girlfriend, Mona Tenebre, who has her arms around your neck, grinning playfully through her gloomy visage at the camera lens. The last picture is of you as a teenager, and your mother when she was healthy. Which photo will you look at closer? You pick up the picture of you and Alyssa, and a warm smile comes to your face upon seeing it. Seeing Alyssa's familiar appearance, from her always bright eyes to her sandy-colored, wavy bob cut, your mind is immediately taken to a better place. Alyssa always provides you with being able to think about what a positive influence she is in your life, and the fact the two of you have been getting a lot closer lately in many different ways. You are thankful that she is the person you can call your best friend, even if she can be a little needy sometimes, but you know that Alyssa is the kind of person that always tries her best, no matter the circumstance. You think back to the more recent times you've spent with Alyssa, which have been few and far between. You recall feeling happy for her when she found love in her now yucky ex-girlfriend Robin, as well as being incredibly angry with her for leaving Alyssa with next to no closure on why. You never met her, nor did you want to. Even in school, Alyssa had always been as charming as she is beautiful, and you felt a little intimidated by this throughout the time that you have known her. Many women adore her for her beauty and charisma, and you couldn't really blame them. But to you, Alyssa's infectious warmth always overwrote her physical features. She has always been the kind of woman who has relentlessly looked out for you, almost nobly, and that was something that always touched your heart. It touches my heart too. I adore Alyssa. She's great. You smile to yourself, fond of the memories you have with your best friend, and place the picture down on the table gently. Everybody knows that best friends to lovers is my favorite trope, and it will always be my favorite trope. Which photo will you look at closer? Mona. You pick up the picture of you and Mona, and despite the smile that comes across your heart your heart is filled with a horrible sense of guilt and sadness. Mona Tanabre was the love of your life, your first love, and your high school sweetheart. As strikingly beautiful as she is intelligent, you knew that you had gotten lucky to have her on your arm. Her gloomy expression often deceived other people into thinking that she was a sad or irritable person, but you knew her better than that. From the deep black of her hair to the shining emerald of her eyes, you found her to be the most beautiful girl you had ever seen. She was kind, sweet, always loving towards you, and always doing her best to support you both. Your mother thought she was a great fit for you, as did Mona's aunt about you in return. Mona had been orphaned at a young age by the disappearance of her own mother, but luckily her aunt quickly took her under her wing. With the approval on both sides of your family coupled with the intense love affair you shared, it all seemed untouchable. But the fairy tale romance was not always to be, as when your mother died, you found out the way that you dealt with grief is to shut yourself away from everyone in your life. Mona tried several times to get you to open up. She was as patient as she was caring, and that was exactly why you decided to let her go. You felt guilty, horrifically so, that you couldn't be the partner that she needed right now. Mona protested against your decision, endlessly insisting, but you, despite how difficult you found it, thought it, unconditionally, to be the best thing to do. You were devastated at the loss of your mother, and you had no idea how long it would be before you recovered. You wanted Mona to be happy. In the end, she respected your decision, but you know, even now, that she still wanted to be there for you. You know that she still loves you, even if you haven't spoken in a little while. But is it time to be with her again? Only time will tell your choice on the matter. You sigh with a bittersweet nostalgia lingering over your mind. Which photo will you look at closer? Your mother. Your eyes flicker to the picture of your teenage self grinning at the side of your mother, and your hand hesitantly picks up the picture. You feel the sudden and horrible welling of emotion behind your eyes and crawling up your throat into a lump. You try not to cry, but you know that it just doesn't work. Seeing her face again reminds you of the endless loss and the hole in your heart that remains since she passed away. It has been about 6 months since then. In fact, her birthday just passed 2 months ago, on the 9th of September. You know that she was at no age to die, but her illness deteriorated her body so much that it was unavoidable. She was lucky to have lived for that long. As you stand with the picture in hand, you feel as though it has been both a lifetime and no time at all since her funeral. You miss her so much, and you miss her all the time, especially inside this flat, but you have not had the confidence or the strength to really leave it. Leaving the flat for too long almost feels like leaving her behind in a sea of your grief, and you wish with all your might that you could bring her back. But you know it is not to be. You were there at the hospital the day she passed, and you remember sobbing in Mona's arms for hours. You crumpled in despair at seeing her pass away. You, even now, still cannot really believe that she is gone, even if you were expecting it for months. Poor libretto. You were terribly mean to these poor girls. It made for such a wonderful story, but my goodness. It was beautiful, but also, I did cry. But life must go on, even in the face of death, and tonight is the first time you've been able to think it that. It was a good kind of cry. I read, I sometimes read sad stories just to enjoy it. No, I did. Sometimes you just gotta feel some things. You gotta get them out. You wipe your eyes, taking a deep breath, and nod to yourself. You can do this. You set the last of the photos down, giving all three of them one last once over as you step away from them. There is still time before you plan to leave. You decide to take a look at the violin. You decide to pick up your violin one more time. Sometimes, I think you mean all the time, and feel the grains of wood in your hand that you love so much. You truly love to play the violin, but something that has baffled you is your lack of opportunity. You just can't work out why none of the orchestras or recording halls for television shows, cartoons, and other things will not take you on. You recall how often you have impressed the directors and sound technicians, conductors, and players alike in auditions, and how often it makes you feel good to do so, and yet they still will not accept you. You always get a rejection letter very quickly afterwards, and you cannot understand why. To top it all off, whenever you've attempted to contact, they refuse to talk to you. It almost feels like a conspiracy. Oh, libretto, if only you knew. You frown, but you remain ever hopeful, and remember what Alyssa said to you upon receiving word that she would be in the orchestra performance. Tonight could be the night that you two make it through. She has every intention of taking you to the top with her, and you hope that she's right. You decide to take a look at the photo album. You decide that if you're going to make tonight one to remember, you're going to finally bite the bullet and look at the album that has been knocking at your feet. As you lean down to pick up the photo album, you feel a pang of wistfulness coil itself around your heart. You already miss the people inside these pages so much more than you could ever begin to describe. This album is one of your most treasured possessions. You pause for thought as you sit down on the edge of your bed and flick open the binder itself. You see pictures of your best friend, former lover, and your mother everywhere. Behind your eyes begins to sting, as you are immediately reminded of not only the reality of your situation, but the reality of just how alone you've been feeling for the past 3 weeks without allowing anyone into your life. You wipe your eyes before you are given a chance to cry, and turn the pages of this crisply bound album as gently as you could. There are categories within this photograph. You have the chance to refresh your memory on many subjects if you felt so inclined. We're going to read everything, all of the things, because it's worth reading. You decide to go to the most natural selection of any photo album of an adult, the childhood section. You have looked at this part of the album many times over, if only out of the sheer fascination at the lack of your memory of it. You did not have a particularly traumatic childhood that you could recall, and yet you've always felt as though there were some gaps in your mind. You always put it down to growing up, however, and moved on. You can hardly believe that there was ever a time when you were smaller than your mother, or that she had a life before you. Some of the photographs within this section are always something that you find fascinating. There are two separate photographs of your mother with two different women that you do not recognize, and both look vastly different from each other. In the first photo, your mother looks younger and happier, and in the second, your mother looks a little older and somehow more morose. You strain to remember any kind of contact with either of these women at all. As you flick through the childhood section further still, you come across the first pictures ever taken of you and Alyssa. You feel a warm smile creeping across your face as you look upon the pictures of the two of you, arms flung around each other, happy and laughing, so full of vim and vigor that you can barely recognize the child in the photographs as yourself. Ooh, excuse me. You smile warmly as you see the photographs of when you got your first violin, which you feel is the most suitable photograph for tonight's events. The photo had been taken 12 long years ago now, when you were the tender age of 11, and you remember how you had been begging your mother to buy you one for years after seeing street performers busking in the town square. Your mother had always been incredibly hesitant to buy you one, never one for music, as she put it, but upon seeing how enthused you were, she knew she had to let you pursue it. Eventually you received one, and not long after that, Alyssa decided to embark on a pursuit of the flute that same year. The two of you stand proud in the picture you gaze upon, instruments in hand. You smile to yourself at the memory of happier times as you turn the last page, covering your earliest memories. Hello! It's nice to see you here. I'm glad that you came. We know. Turn to adolescence. I'm so excited to be playing this game. Again. For the millionth time. You decide to look upon what was easily the most embarrassing chapter of any person's life. Adolescence. Truly the most embarrassing. I don't think I've met anybody that didn't consider adolescence to be embarrassing. You flick through the pages with a wry smile on your face, and you feel the familiar sting of emotions behind your eyes once more as you finally stumble across the very pictures you knew you would. Photographs of Mona with her high school uniform on and her arms around you, kissing your cheek with such an unshakable adoration that you almost couldn't bear to think too long about it. Seeing these photographs took you back, almost in a lifelike haze, to when the two of you had first met. You had met Mona Tenebre at your local small high school. She had moved in from a rural town that very year, and you immediately had heard of the new transfer student within your ranks. Interested, as everyone else was, you noticed her sitting across from you in front of the class, and you noticed the way she looked at you, even back then. You were both too shy to speak to one another at first, but she was somebody that you just couldn't stop thinking about. Even though Mona was not my favorite. I loved her, I adored her, and I always felt bad for her when I took Alyssa's route again and again. I always felt very bad for her because I was like, no, she doesn't deserve this. I was gonna say that Libretto has two hands, but her gloomy appearance, the straight fringe across her eyes, and her dark hair hanging just above her shoulders, and you knew full well all. You knew full well all about how she had with You knew full well all about how she had the most mesmerizing emerald green eyes. You remembered how many people within the school were a mixture of either scared or in love with her, and all of the times you were convinced that you would never have a chance with her. I think scared and in love kind of go hand in hand. I've played her route, of course, because I've really tried to go through everything. Eventually, however, she had made the first move. You'd always been too shy to really say anything first, and you'd always been too focused on practicing your violin to waver from such a sentiment. You're literally all the time. Every time. You remember how you had to restrain a blush when she talked to you, how thoroughly in love you were when were with her from the first word that came from her lips. It barely took any time at all for the two of you to have your first kiss beneath the apple tree outside of her house, or the way you remember floating on a cloud as you walked home. The two of you were together from that moment onwards. You always knew Alyssa held a little disdain towards her. I can only imagine why, but you put it down to an endearingly platonic possessiveness. Throughout your teenage years, you were the most secure couple you knew. Happy, well-adjusted, loving. Even though the two of you had your rare moments of griping on something, it was never for very long, and was always ironed out within the hour. You felt a shaky sigh of emotions rise up into your throat involuntarily, and the bats that had been inside your stomach for the last 6 months making their home even more comfortable. You skim over the other photographs in the adolescent section, your certificates for your violin recitals, your graduation at school, pictures of you and Mona at her aunt's wedding dressed up in formal attire. A lot had happened in your teenage years, and a lot had happened for Mona, too. Almost everything in this section has served as nothing more than a reminder that she is gone from your life. You shake your head furiously, determined to remove the sense of guilt from your stomach. You sigh with an annoyed tone towards yourself. Which section of the album do you want to look through? All grown up. The sad one. As if it's not all a little sad. You flick over to the section entitled as such, and you feel a melancholic smile tugging at the edges of your lips once more at the memories this book holds. Your mother, as you realized almost afresh upon each flick through of this book, was an avid photographer. As someone who thoroughly loved sculpture, she was a woman who enjoyed capturing life and all of its moments that it had to offer, with the new addition of a camera to your family. It was nice to be able to look upon the past with a renewed sense of nostalgia. Libretto and the really bad no good day. This section was something you had mildly protested to, exclaiming that you did not want many photographs to be taken of you now that you were older and out of schooling. But your mother had insisted, and took the photographs anyway. You eventually learned that protesting against something that had become natural instinct to her eyes was futile, and grew to enjoy being subjected to the lens each time a birthday or momentous occasion came around. There were more recent photographs in this section that you hadn't been able to bring yourself. She really is that bitch. Photographs from the last couple of years, where your mother was looking frailer and frailer, less like herself, less full of life. You hadn't realized it as quickly as Alyssa and Mona had, as you were around the house at least once every day, whereas they did not quite see her as much as you. There were several photographs here. Pictures from your 20th, 21st, and 22nd birthdays, pictures of when you decided to go busking for the first time with Alyssa, and pictures of even when your mother was in the hospital. You hated that she wanted a picture of that. She claimed that it was good to normalize things, and to get a sense of what life was like before she recovered from her illness. You began to start hiding the camera after that. You didn't want to remember your mother in that way. The last photograph in this section is of you on your 22nd birthday. Sat before a cake as though you were a child once more. Around you are the usual suspects in your life. Your mother, Mona, Alyssa, and their respective families, and even your old cat, Sasha. You feel happy looking upon this memory with fresh eyes. It's something nice to be able to take with you tonight to the hall. You are finished looking over this section. You close the photo album with a satisfying snap and a soft sigh. Memory lane isn't always an easy path to stroll down. In fact, it is so often a difficult path. You find that you still have a bit of time to kill before it's time to leave for the Symphony Hall. We did look at the letters. You look at the two letters that you place carefully on the desk nearest to your door, and you feel a warm, bittersweet sensation coiling itself around your heart. You love remembering these letters, no matter how much heartache one of them may bring you now. You have successfully convinced yourself that love without some kind of pain to test your affections cannot really be called romance. You walk over to the mahogany desk, looking upon the crumpled papers that you have read over and over so many times, back to front and side to side. One is from Alyssa, which she had sent after being able to return to living on her own after staying with you, Mona, and your mother. The second is from Mona on your 22nd birthday. I'll start with the letter from Mona. To my darling libretto. Happy 26th birthday. I almost said 26. 22nd birthday, sweetheart. Ha! Never thought I'd write you a letter, did you? I feel as though I'm back in school again with all these giddy crush-like feelings being poured onto a piece of paper. Speaking of teenage indiscretion, I very nearly embarrassed myself by sending you dried rose petals again, thinking it was the epitome of poetic. It was. And God, do you remember when I told you that you should play your violin to me in the graveyard? Because it would be so romantic if you did. I'm burning up inside, but grand gestures aside, I think it should go without saying that you know just how I feel about you. But I suppose it can't hurt to spell it out. Libretto, I really, truly love you. With all of my heart, I love you. You are the love of every part of my life, my best friend, my lover, my confidant. You have shown me what it is to truly value something. You have changed my life in so many ways, from all the ways you make me laugh, to the ways you comfort me when I cry, the ways you hold me in the mornings, the way you kiss my lips. There are so many rewarding things about being in love, and those are just a few to name from an infinite list. Every day feels like a new beginning with you, Angel. There's nothing I love more than just getting to be with you. Eagle! Hey, Eagle. We are playing some horror, but we're in that part that's very nostalgic and sad. In fact, this part is very, um, well, it's very lovey. Yeah, why are you awake? Go to sleep. Sometimes when you sleep, I just look at your face for a while. The beautiful lines of your cheekbones, the way your hair flops against the pillow. There are so many moments, aren't there? Ah, this is all so embarrassing. I can't believe you feel the same about me. It almost feels as though being given this life, and the opportunity just to be with you, is something that the universe is spoiling me with. You were the first person to look at me and not see me as just that gloomy girl, or see me as scary. You saw the real me. You saw parts of me that I didn't even know were there. If I could, I would spend every moment of every day with you, without moving even once. You are the most wonderful thing that happened to me. Thank you for everything. I'm so happy to be able to call myself all yours. And if you'll let me, I will do forever. There's nobody else in the world for me but you. No matter what happens, I'll always be all yours, Libretto, and that's something that'll never, ever change. I love you so much, my darling, with all my heart. I can't wait to see where the rest of our lives together takes us. Have a wonderful day, sweetheart. All of my love, Mona. The romanticism in this game are something that I really love. Just it's very I don't know. I really enjoy the way the poeticism of the romance. I think it's really beautiful. This game is an emotional roller coaster that I have willingly taken many times. You pick up the letter from Melissa and feel a smile come across your face. Dear Libretto, well, where to start? I thought writing you a letter was probably the best option of giving you some kind of gift. Considering that you know better than anyone of how little money I have right now. Well, of how little money I've always had, really. But you've never judged me for that. I could never even begin to hope to express my gratitude for your undying support, and that of your mother's, too. There's no way in the world I could ever think of having a best friend that wasn't you. You always support me through my darkest hour, darling. I'm sorry that I wasn't upfront about it with you, and Allegra about my situation. Mona, too, I suppose. I felt horribly embarrassed, and to tell you the truth, determined to sort it out myself. I know that human beings aren't designed to suffer alone, but our pride tells us that we must. The life of a stubborn mule is not a glamorous one, but it is one I've fully committed to. Oh, if I didn't laugh, I would surely cry. But with how amazing both of us are, we can laugh more than we will ever cry, darling. I shall be the most amazing star that you could ever ask for. Anyway, I just wanted to thank you for everything. Thank you, Mona, and your mother for everything, Libretto. Words cannot express just how much it meant to me to have someone there for me, especially with my parents gone. Times have been so tough, you know that, but it means even more so to have the support emotionally. There are just some things money cannot buy, and a truly beneficial friendship with you is one of them. You are welcome to my new place at any time, no matter what, but I'm sure you already knew that too. Well, darling, I think that's quite enough sappiness out of me, but was something that I absolutely had to tell you, no matter how I made it look. I simply had to put it into words. No amount of gratitude could ever express my own. Thank you for essentially saving my life. It was terrible on the streets. At one point I even had to sleep in the village park up the trees for fear of my own safety. Things are picking up now, though. Naturally, I have my own place, but I've always met somebody too. She is as good to me as the stars are to the sky. Things are finally getting better for both of us. Libretto, and things will continue to do so. Of that, I'm certain. Enjoy your coffee, and don't cry in the coffee. I've learned that it doesn't taste very nice. See you soon, darling. Take care, and remember to bring the wine over tonight. Mona could always do with a few drinks down her for my liking. Alyssa being in any kind of pain hurts, and it will never not hurt. Lots of love, Alyssa. You fold the letter back up with extra care and slip it into its envelope. You glance at your clock. There's still some time to spare until you need to depart to the symphony hall. You decide to look at the composition papers. You decide to check out the papers strewn across the floor, and seemingly every other inch of your room as far as your eye can see. These papers are partially yours, and partially compositions that you shared with Alyssa Durante. Ooh, excuse me, your best friend. The two of you both wanted desperately to be musicians in a professional capacity, but you both could never find the work. You were lucky in that you always had your mother to provide a roof over your head while you searched. Alyssa, on the other hand, did not have anyone after the death of her grandparents, and even slept on the streets without your knowledge for a while. Ah, that hurts. She always was a stickler for her pride remaining intact. Find a lot of memories flood back upon looking at these compositions. You had both spent hours slaving away over them, writing and perfectly fine-tuning them to no end, and only managed to sell them for... The shared dream is just another aspect of the beauty of this best friends to lovers. Truly, truly, truly. Sell them for enough to eat for a couple of days at least. It was a very bittersweet industry for the two of you, and not one that you have felt an injection of passion for in the last few weeks. You place the paper back down on the ground and stand back up. You would rather forget the times you spent writing these for little money. You decide to look at the bereavement cards. You don't want to look at those, not really. The decision pops into your head momentarily. Well, thank you. I'm quite glad that you agree, and I must say that you also have some very fine taste in culture. Best friends to lovers is, I don't know. There's something about it that I just absolutely adore. The decision pops into your head momentarily before it is shaken off by you at the mere sight of the pastel flowers covered in bits of muted glitter and calligraphy to suggest an expensive ink. The words "sorry for your loss" and "thinking of you" have been glaring you in the face for the last 6 months. You felt sick at the thought of the amount of despair and self-inflicted loneliness that you faced over the last 20 or so weeks. You weren't sure. You hadn't been counting since your mother's death. You turn away. Let's get going. The slow burn, I think, but also the it's the mutual of, like, you can tell that they're in love and that they have been, but they've been so close for so long that it's hard to really realize it. And where maybe an outside source would look and say, yeah, this is what's happening, but the inside has been so stuck in the current that it can't really see where it's going. I think it's really pretty. You've spent too much time in this place lately anyway. After feeling as though you have thoroughly checked your room over for anything you may need for tonight, you give yourself the once-over in the mirror, tucking every rogue strand of hair back into place. Wrap what you would call your signature red shawl tight and neat against your shoulders, and make a vested effort to look as wonderful as you possibly can. You grab your bag at the side of the door instinctively, though you don't really remember what is in here. You don't care to check either. Your eyes meet with your own violin before you leave, and you smile as you close your door, as you imagine that perhaps one day you too could be in that symphonic chorus. Tonight could well be the night of the beginning of your dreams. No wonder you were terrified. Who knew what you were going to meet after all? You lock the door behind you, and your feet crunch along the gravel as you walk. You are finally on your way to the Symphony Hall. Looking behind you in the dark always felt slightly ominous, but you could never figure out why. In this sleepy village, nothing dangerous had ever happened to your knowledge. But perhaps the most frightening thing of all is not the incidents themselves. We're gonna see Best Girl soon. I'm. That is such a wonderful ongoing comparison, and also I am more than thrilled to get to see Best Girl. But perhaps the most frightening thing of all is not the incidents themselves, but the mere potential for something dreadful to happen at the hands of another, the idea that there might just be monsters lurking in the dark, the grisly horrors of the human world, the perspective for predatory behavior being a very real reality. You shiver as you walk and push the sensation of danger to the back of your mind. Despite that, you cannot see too far out ahead of you. The moon is out in full, looming ominously in the navy blue sky amidst a blanket of stars, shimmering silently in the cold wind beneath them. As your teeth chatter with tiny clicks and clacks, you pull your warm shawl around your shoulders once more, snug and comforting. You are thankful that the earlier rain of this day had finally come to a halt, even if that has made for a rather freezing cold night time. But as you walk forwards, you begin to notice something. You feel as though you are not alone, which in itself is rather strange, considering you come from an already rather remote small town. You are surprised that a symphony was even coming here, to somewhere as small and insignificant as this, alone hearing far-off footsteps that still sound a little too close for your liking. The more you walk, the closer you hear them. You feel a horrible prick up your neck. Will you turn around and check? Absolutely not. Unfazed by the sounds, you dismiss the ominous feeling that you are being watched, even if the shiver up your spine persists. You feel your breath puff out ahead of you as you walk through the icy breeze, and your ears are met with deafening sound of silence. It is interrupted only by the crunch of your footsteps. The sharp scent of pine trees wafts against your nose like pinpricks, and your lips dry from the cold night's mists. I have willingly allowed myself to die in this game, and I think we both know the scene where I willingly allowed myself to die in this game, and I hope that we get there this stream because it's very it's very good. Something about the atmosphere around you already makes it feel like a night to remember. Your ears prickle up to the sound of those footsteps again. No matter how you try to push it back, your blood runs cold as you realize that a horrible sensation is lingering over you. It creeps slowly up your back to the point you almost want to scream. You find yourself moving along the frosty path by allowing your walk to break into a sprint. You are feeling as though shadow-like fingers are resting gently and uninvited on your shoulder. You continue to run faster. And after what feels like a lifetime of braving the cold and the fright, another light begins to rise on the horizon. You recognize this as the doorway to the Symphony Hall and breathe a relieved sigh. You feel the familiar relief that the light always brings, that it will save you from this unwelcome darkness, and as you approach, you begin to hear faint mumbles of conversation. It's such a good scene, and I have I have played it multiple times over just for the sake of having that scene. You have to die for it, and I really wish you didn't, but it's worth it. The Symphony Hall has a long and illustrious history of being mostly unused to your knowledge. It was used periodically by your music teacher when they were young, as well as the other members of your town whenever they wanted to learn, but that was many, many years ago. That was over 40 years ago, and as far as you know, there hasn't been any performances here in a long time. You have always felt a little sad upon remembering such a thing. Hydration check. But not tonight. Your eyes meet with the silhouettes standing in the light, their shrill laughter accompanied by chattering voices, and the clink of wine glasses against one another. Your stomach churns at the thought of interacting with so many new people. As quickly as you become lost in your thoughts, you are wrenched away as your boots come to an abrupt halt against the pebbles beneath you. You have reached the doorway. You have arrived at the Symphony Hall. Yes, we're talking about the best Alyssa part, my favorite. A sacrifice I'm more than willing to make. You feel as though your hair is a mess, and your appearance is disheveled from all the walking and running it took to get here. But even if you stand, as you stand, you begin to observe your surroundings, and feel the warmth of the room melting into your cheeks, thawing you out from the inside out, and your stomach's churnings begins to unreel into a calm, welcome sensation. You take one last look out from behind you. There is no monster to be seen. You laugh to yourself privately. There is no such thing as monsters, right? It really was pretty good. I. There was an option to call her handsome, and I can't not do it. I don't have it in me to not do it. It's the truth. Do you believe in monsters? Yeah. Yeah, I would have to say that I do. I couldn't have put that more beautifully. A warped vein? Despite the laughter you hold to a private audience of yourself, you feel your jaw locking up from the nerves. You were always afraid of meeting monsters in the dark. Something in your mind always told you that they existed, and it was a feeling that you could never shake off. You feel an unwanted shiver crawl up your spine, and shake it off immediately. You try to forget your walk to the Symphony Hall as quickly as possible. You shakily give the cloakroom attendant your bag, and move along with haste. Turning around, your eyes meet with several mahogany arched doorways behind crowds of people, and you find it much easier than anticipated to weave in and out of the masses. Your breath is taken away by the luxurious appearance of the lobby before you. Was this really the place that Alyssa was so cordially invited to? You also couldn't help but wonder why you weren't also invited, given that the two of you often did busking and commissioned works together. You felt almost ashamed every time you thought about it for too long. Vicar Starling can't get me here. I hope. Feelings of inferiority aside, you are bowled over by the lavishness of the lobby. You see many rich, expensive tapestries woven with the equally gaudily wealthy colors used around the room, and the place oozes money. You raise an eyebrow at seeing that even the plastic plants dotted around the room appear to be rare. You barely even know where to start. Eat the rich. Upon looking around the lobby itself, you notice that there are three doorways, one which appears to be guarded by an attendant, standing nervously with her pigtailed hair resting gently on her shoulders and adjusting her glasses every few seconds, another door which you assess to be the bathrooms, and a third door which you can clearly see from the way two women just staggered out in formal dress wear laughing on each other's shoulders, is almost certainly the bar. I didn't mention it earlier, but another one of the things that I absolutely love about this game is that it's a big box of oops all lesbians. And that's beautiful. That's peak entertainment. You also note that there are large navy blue double doors that you deduce immediately to be the gateway to the stage area, but you cannot enter there just yet. For the time being, you indulge the idea of exploring the hall and all of its expensive glory, as you feel as though you need to clear your head before Alyssa finds you tonight. You now have the opportunity to look around for a while. Where will you check first? Do I want... You know, I think I would like to start this with a healthy dose of pain. As you manage to weave your way in and out of the other smartly dressed patrons. Oh, I'm perfectly aware of how it goes. I, um, I do a little bit of writing myself. I'm not, I don't find myself to be nearly as talented, but, um, it, I know how it goes. As you manage to weave your way in and out of the other smartly dressed patrons, your eyes glance over shimmers of expensive gold necklaces, vibrant rubies, and tailor-made suits. You carefully eschew yourself from bumping anybody's side, and make your way to the bathroom to check your appearance and freshen up a little. You open the doorway, and your eyes are immediately surprised by the decadence of what was supposed to be a simple bathroom. Eat the rich. The walls are covered in wallpaper of vivid green forestry, and the sinks are made with the most exquisite-looking blue porcelain, accompanied by a faux gold taps, a red velvet rug beneath your feet, a silver chandelier hanging over your head, and some rather unglamorous gray cubicles next to you by comparison. Only one cubicle is occupied. A, a woman having an intense conversation with herself, full of pep and vigor and self-appreciation. And as such, you decide not to interrupt with too loud of a noise. Same, girl, same. You can do it. You can do it. Don't think about everything else. You heard the mumbling and lean against the freshly cleaned sinks, peering into the mirror, and check your appearance. You splash a little warm water onto your face, unable to shake the feeling that the voice in the bathroom stall sounds incredibly familiar. As you turn to leave, the toilet inside the occupied cubicle flushes, and you instinctively turn to face them as they exit. The door opens, and the two of you look at each other with startled, wide eyes. Oh! The two of you stop dead in your tracks. You feel frozen to the spot. The voice was not only familiar, but somebody that you knew better than anybody in the world. Pain. The woman before you cannot bring herself to speak first, but even though there is a tension, you can tell it is not hostile. The ice needs to be broken before things take a turn for the further awkward, and you must be the one to do so. Libretto, she gasps, her emerald eyes shining at you in a stunned, breathless moment. What will you say? Now how can I make this, worse? How can I make this worse? Mona flinches at your words. You feel a knife of guilt twist in your chest. The two of you stand frozen to the spot, meters apart from one another, and with a glaze over your eyes so glassy that you feel as though you aren't sure whether to cry or to leave immediately. Mona Tenebre, once the love of your life, and currently not your girlfriend though through your own decision, stands before you. She looks stunned and utterly shell-shocked to see you, and you wring your hands with anxiety. What on earth was she doing here? Were you both really going to talk about your issues here, in the bathroom of a symphony hall's opening night? Surely, if Alyssa had known Mona would be here, she would have told you. Right? You feel confused and alarmed, and on top of that, Mona looks more upset than she does anything else. What did you want to say? What could you say? You're beyond shocked to see her, but you were even more surprised that you had not seen her look so stunned in any of the moments that you two spent together. This was pure, undiluted emotion. She genuinely wasn't expecting to see you at all, if ever again. Libretto, she finally stammers out and shakes her head. What are you doing here? What? She pauses and runs a hand through her hair, her eyes closing in frustration. Damn it, of course. Alyssa is here, isn't she? She sighs with an angry exasperation, but you can tell it isn't aimed at you. How could I be so stupid to not assume that she'd... Well, I thought she had a partner, but... There is a long pause. You visibly see Mona shiver at the idea that has just entered her head. I'm not gonna say anything. Mona looks at you suspiciously, undoubtedly trying to work out whether you and Alyssa are an item or not, and shakes her head hastily. I live and breathe for gay drama. It's nothing. The woman before you is as strikingly beautiful as you remember. You feel taken aback by the attraction, almost if you had gotten over the time you spent apart. Tonight, she is dressed sharply. She is wearing a white, frilled blouse with a waistcoat over the top, a dark purple ruche in the middle of her collar, accompanied by the dark purple stockings, a black skirt, and smartly coordinated shoes. I feel like Libretto is also having a crisis in that moment. Her gloomy expression is as you left it all those months ago. Those familiar emerald eyes look out from under her fringe at you, desperately searching your face for answers that aren't there. What will you say? Do you want me to leave? Mona's expression looks at you as though you've cut her with a knife. Of course not. I didn't want you to leave in the first place, Mona exclaims, the choice of words proving to be a little too close to home, and it breaks your heart to hear her voice crack. How can you be so insensitive, Libretto? Of course I don't want you to just leave. Mona shuffles around in her position a little, and you lean against the wall facing her. Her emerald stare meets your gaze, and the two of you are unable to look away from each other for a moment. I can't believe... Mona begins, and she clears her throat as she finally breaks the eye contact. I can't believe Alyssa didn't tell either of us that she was planning to invite you, after everything that, well, you know. Mona shifts uncomfortably, and you can feel the gravity of the situation around you two. What will you say? You know Alyssa better than anyone. After everything that the two of you had been through, there is no way that she would forget to tell you something of this magnitude. Excitement or not over her performance, you feel slightly defensive over Alyssa, and you insist that she must have had a reason, some kind of good intentions to making sure that you and Mona didn't cross paths or get hurt by one another in such a sensitive time. You know, I can't blame her. Sometimes you just want to see the drama. Mona feels a little burned that you would choose to take the side over someone who placed the two of you in a painful situation. Oh, really? Mona replies with a sarcastic tone aimed at a non-present Alyssa. And I've got a tickle in my throat. And just what did she think would happen when she brought you backstage to meet everyone, or even when you were able to just see the performance? Did she really think that you'd just have her eyes glued to her when we're in a quartet? Come on, I know her ego is big, Libretto, but that is ridiculous. I actually don't think it's an incorrect assumption to assume that my eyes were going to be glued to her, because they were. Mona scoffs to herself and turns back to face the mirror with her makeup bag in hand. She dabs at the edges of her eyes, and the sound of her mascara clicking out of its holder makes you jump a little. You and I both know that isn't the case, but believe what you want. I can at least see Alyssa for what she really is. Utterly deluded. That woman she was with before didn't want her, and neither do you. Oh, that's a little of a rough assumption. She's always wanted you for herself, even when we were together. Didn't you ever stop to think about that? Whatever, Mona replies, sighing wearily, and you can tell that she is fighting back her emotions. It's not my business anymore. You decided that much, and I know why you did. I just don't know how you can stand there and defend someone like that after everything we've been through together. Even if... You feel the awkward, hot rush of discomfort prickle up your back. You feel as though this was a step in the wrong direction for getting back into Mona's good graces. After an awkward silence that feels like it lasts an eternity whilst Mona finishes doing her makeup, she turns around to face you. She looks at you with an expectant, unintentional stare, a look that you recognize of hers fully when she is trying to work up what you're thinking about. You are always the kind of woman to keep your cards close to your chest, unless the situation particularly calls for emotional exposure. She tries a few more seconds before giving up entirely and slips her hands into her pockets. Libretto, she begins bashfully before looking away from you. I'll see you at the performance tonight. You have the opportunity to do something. Your hands quickly move, and you don't do anything. You keep your hand firmly at your sides, deciding to let the moment pass naturally. Mona pats your hand and turns away from you to prevent you seeing the tears in her eyes. See you later. Do what you have to do, okay? And with that, Mona makes a speedy exit. As she brushes past you, you catch the scent of perfume that once lingered on your skin. You take a moment to collect yourself, washing your face once more, and return to the lobby. Where will you look now? Let's go to the cloakroom. Yeah, basically. This is the first room you've been inside. There, that has no windows to its name. Anyone that's not Alyssa sucks to suck, I guess. There are lavish coats of all colors and designs as far as the eye can see. Chestnut hat stands are placed in the corners at the front of the room and are adorned with all manner of headgear, from finely made top hats to the scruffiest of flat caps. I definitely... Alyssa can own all of my attention. Actually, every speck of it. The light is bright above your head, and the sound of muffled conversation obscured by the cloakroom door reaches your ears. The entire place is made of smooth, dark wood, a strong smell of polish floating underneath your nose. You smell the comforting scent of a freshly lain carpet. A gentle blue pattern rests beneath your boots, soothing your eyes. This room smells like new paint and lavender. You cannot help but think that this room feels safe, and that you are somewhat reluctant to leave. Eventually, after soaking in the atmosphere a little more, you see where the attendant has placed your bag in a locker. You decide to leave. Let's go to the bar. Let's meet some more gays. Naturally, your instinct in a lavish place such as this is to check their alcoholic contents, if only out of a curiosity as opposed to quenching a thirst. As you approach the bar, you begin to realize that your boots have automatically carried you here. You laugh at your actions as you hear the faint sounds of the room, the shuffle of delicate wine glasses coupled quietly clinking beverages, with ice scoops being shoveled into small metal buckets of cubes. You hear a cork pop across the room, and you feel your mouth salivating for something cold to slip down your throat. Your eyes nearly pop out of your skull when you see the prices. Alrighty. Arietta is beautiful, and she could hit me right in the face. The bar has an intense atmosphere in the air. It is very different from the atmosphere of the lively flowing chatter from outside, as in here feels personal, almost vindictive, with an impending doom awaiting almost every corner. You blink, surprised at the surrounding feeling, and walk to the bar. Perhaps the two women emerging from here weren't quite so drunk from the happy ambience as much as they were from the copious amounts of vodka they indulged in. Quite a mood. I'm doing quite well, thank you. How are you doing today? You decide to have a drink, and the bar woman looks at you with a suspect glare. She can tell you aren't rich. Rich people have an odor. She looks you up and down twice. Yes? So many choices, so many choices. So many choices. School is lame. You ask for a glass of water with ice and pointedly place your money on the counter. She looks at you in surprise, and you can almost see how foolish she feels for assuming you would not be able to afford a drink. As you wish, madame. You choose not to inform her that this was all the money you brought with you for tonight. Oh, what a mood. As you wait for your order, you turn around, leaning back on the smooth wood of the bar's countertop, and observe your surrounding company in this unusual room. The chandelier that hangs from the ceiling is beautiful. Right? Imagine only being able to afford a glass of water. It's me. It could be me, and it is me every day. The chandelier that hangs from the ceiling is beautiful. It is incredibly old-fashioned, with what looks like candles standing upright, perfectly spaced between one another, and doting along an impossibly back metal frame. I will, thank you. I've got about, I'm probably gonna call it, once we get into the horror. It makes you wonder just how old the building really is. The walls of the bar are dimly lit, burning the midnight oil before the clock strikes 9, and moths dance around the flames of glass and casements in an almost mesmerizing motion. The walls are covered in a mixture of both a light and dark forest green print, heralding an old Victorian pattern, bordered by a chestnut-colored wood against its lower half. Ooh, excuse me. There are dark green leather-clad booths, cushioned seats bordered by more of the same chestnut wood, as smooth and polished as each other, and each booth's seats are accompanied by small tables in the center of them, with candles and faux flowers residing in the middle. Each one of these booths amidst this atmospheric bar holds someone even shiftier looking than the last. There are many unimpressed, suspicious-looking women swirling their drinks around their tumblers, the ice cubes clink together in their glasses. Old playing cards lay strewn across the few tables, as well as jewelry, cash, and even though you didn't look too hard, you think there might be blood. You wouldn't be surprised if someone's nose got punched in this room. You begin to wonder if these are the kinds of people you are afraid of finding in the dark, on an unlit road's path. But amidst all of this, and coincidentally, as you receive your drink from the disgruntled barwoman, you see two women sat at the back. You can't help but be immediately drawn to them in the midst of this place. The first one you notice is the woman sat on the left. She is a woman with fire red hair, swept into a ponytail that rests over her shoulder, and the woman on her right sits with long brunette waves for her own hair, perfectly complementing her dark skin. The redhead looks just as fearsome and permanently unimpressed as the rest of the clientele in this building, but the brunette looks gentle and serene, and above all else, you think that they look happy, in love, and from their body language, very private. The redhead is as handsome as her partner is beautiful, and the two of them together make a very aesthetically pleasing match to your eyes. Beauty and brawn, ice and fire, that was the impression you immediately drew from them. You can almost see the atmosphere of history and chemistry mingling between them, where the serene, kind-looking woman has an obvious, undeniably good influence on the other. Ariata is, perfect, beautiful. their fingers joining with one another as you watch from afar, coiling around each other's hands like the gentlest of serpents or the strongest of thread, and it is made apparent that they are not interested in looking away from each other. Amidst the shiftiness of the other patrons chattering in a hushed, suspect tones with one another, you smile. Good luck on your work. Um, I am very excited to play that game as well, and I do intend to play my route on stream. Um, I'm actually thinking about playing the whole game on stream. I'm really glad that you were able to come by. It's actually been an honor to have the creators of the game here, so it's been wonderful. Libretto is like they're not Alyssa, so I'm gonna ignore their mood. You almost You also notice that they are dressed ever slightly different from the others in here, and wonder if that is perhaps something significant. Their attire looks more formal, and somehow more prepared for a stage presence. You begin to suspect that they are part of the symphonic quartet from later. I know that I'm going to love it. The root. I will, thank you, and thank you again for stopping by. There was one final element about the two women that you couldn't help but notice, and that was that they seemed familiar. You couldn't place how or why, but something about them felt incredibly familiar to you. You swirl your drink in your glass in an indecisive manner, before eventually you decide to go over and strike up a conversation with the two of them. What could go wrong? Yeah, alright. Goodbye. Bye. You hesitantly begin to make your way over, stopping to rub the back of your neck periodically, and as you suddenly pick up a brisk pace, the brunette is the first to notice you. I might have to pause for a little bit, or stop for a little bit actually, because I'm starting to cough more than I need to be. Hello. Hello, how are you doing? Is work doing well? Or did it go well? She looks up at you with a curious look in her eyes, almost questioning who you are wordlessly, and why you are wandering over there in the first place. You also cannot quite believe that you are working up the courage to interrupt a date that is obviously as intense as this, and the redhead maintains her already less than impressed demeanor at your arrival. The candle's flickering flame before her casts a dark shadow on her face, her eyes seemingly golden from the grim expression. She glares at you, and you swallow down the dry, nervous lump in your throat. She leans back in her seat, removing her arm from the woman that she very clearly adores, and folds them expectantly. You watch as she eyes up the drink in your hand. You want something? I'm busy, and you don't seem the kind of lady I'd keep company with. The brunette pats her arm and looks at you apologetically. Arietta, be nice. She mumbles hastily. The other woman clicks her tongue at you. But I don't know this woman. Do you? The brunette studies your face for a moment, before looking back at her companion. No, I don't think so, she confesses. You shift a little uncomfortably. The redhead sighs, and you can tell that her icy demeanor is beginning to crack at seeing your genuine emotions. Alright, alright, what do you want? You want money? I can pay you to leave us alone. Can't you see we're busy? You decide that honesty is the best policy, especially in a place like this. What could it hurt to tell them the truth anyway? You can clearly hear that the offer of monetary payment to leave them is sarcastic, and you would hate to be strung up by your fingers for saying anything wrong in the first place, but especially to a couple who looked very much like they had a cacophony of secrets. They both exchange a look of silent surprise at each other for a moment at your response. You are puzzled but pleasantly surprised that the redhead hasn't jumped from her seat to whack you in the face. I wish she would. You'd met us somewhere before? The brunette asks inquisitive, inquisitively, and as she nears the end of her sentence, her tone becomes slower. The two exchange a suspicious look. Well, I very much doubt that. Maybe you went to a bar where we were playing one night? Though we've never really been to this area before. The redhead looks at her partner and squeezes her shoulder reassuringly. Don't give her ideas, sweetheart. Ideas mean excuses. You feel the pointed tip of this woman's verbal dagger aimed at your throat, as if to say, if you take advantage of us, I'll kill you. But it's rare for someone to come up and say this to us, Arietta. What if she really has seen us somewhere before? It's not impossible for someone to come up and say this, though. But we're hardly approachable. I have no idea what you mean. The brusque redhead behind as she leans back, sparking up a cigarette, and exhales the smoke in draconian fashion. I'm the epitome of approachable. The woman next to her laughs and pats her shoulder, and the redhead smirks with the satisfaction of making her girlfriend smile. You stand a little awkwardly before their exchange. The brunette is the first to speak to you once more. You really feel as though you've met us somewhere before, she asks you inquisitively. So what if she has? The redhead replies, but her scathing remark isn't directed at her partner, and instead directly at you. What's your point, What's your angle? You want something in particular? You gulp at her hostility. You're skating on thin ice. What will you say? I'm sorry. The redhead expression softens at your apology, and she sighs with resignation. She rests her hand atop her whiskey tumbler, the cigarette between her fingers burning away the tobacco in a therapeutically slow fashion. The brunette looks at both of you and her girlfriend with a warm expression, and you feel immediately alleviated of your pressure around them. She's warming up to you, the brunette whispers, and the redhead looks at her with a surprised glance. Hey, just hold on a second here, she speaks, and this is the softest you've heard her so far. You pause, almost expecting an apology. The brunette smirks at her, and she frowns away with you with an irritated noise. You can tell she feels bad for her remarks, if only because you appear to have been connected with the brunette a little more than the redhead. He pouts. Shh, I'm Arietta. The redhead woman finally speaks, and leans back in her seat, looking away from you as she puffs away on her cigarette. The brunette woman smiles as she looks away, before she turns her gaze back to face you. She holds her hand out for you to shake, and you take it in surprise. And I'm Serenade, at least by stage name, replies the brunette with a charming smile. And the two smile at one another before looking back at you beneath the dim, smoky lights of the bar. What about you? What's your name? You tell them your name, and they almost look impressed. Arietta, in particular, has a flash of recognition amongst her eyes. Did you perhaps know her from somewhere? Libretto, she mumbles, running a hand over her chin in contemplation, and Serenade looks at her a little in surprise alongside you. She shakes her head away from Arietta's thoughts, and turns to face you with a warm smile that you had come to appreciate. Oh, hello, see you. I'm actually going to be wrapping up soon. My cough is getting to be a little difficult for a stream that is going to be 100% reading. My, you sound like you were destined to be at a symphony hall, weren't you? Serenade laughs affectionately and takes a sip of her drink. Well, it's nice to meet you, Libretto. Sorry about this one's brashness from before. She's not used to having strangers approach us so casually, or for such innocent reasoning as yours. Thank you. That would be much appreciated. Arietta is spoke by Serenade, who looks at her clasped hands together on the table, fiddling with one of the many silver rings she has on several of her fingers. I guess it's all right to meet you, she begrudgingly says. You haven't done anything stupid yet, I suppose. Oh, come on, Addie. Be nice already, Serenade chides. She grits her teeth and she looks at you, and you almost laugh from the pained expression on her face of an attempt at warmth. Nice to meet you. You and Serenade both chuckle at the infliction of disinterest at the end of Arieta's sentence, and you nod. Arieta can't help but smile a little, and leans back in her seat, resting an arm around Serenade. You are relieved that this meeting is now turning out to be as nice as it is. Say, libretto, Serenade begins to ask, and you can already anticipate a question coming at the end of this starter. If it's all right to ask, considering it was strong enough to bring you over to us, where do you think you've met us? Was there some kind of indicator? You paused for thought. Was there? I don't know. I see. Well, I suppose we'll find out sooner or later, Serenade says. Arietta leans into the squeaking green leather of her booth seats, and you get the impression that you've overstayed your welcome for them from this posture alone. The next few words out of her mouth accommodate that notion. Perhaps we'll see you in the concert hall, Arietta says with a less forced tone, but we'd like a few more minutes alone, if you please. Serenade and you smile at Arietta's awkward attempt to be friendly, and you say, Alright, bye. The two women before you nod in agreement at your reasonable response and bid you farewell with a warm smile. You're surprised at how well that ended up going for you. With two friends rather obscurely made, you wave your hand and walk towards the door. You return to the lobby area, feeling more refreshed than before, and slip off your red shawl over your blouse-covered arm. Where will you look next? Okay, since my cough is kind of making it a little difficult for me to read, I'm sure you've noticed that I've had to pause every few moments to clear out the tickle in my throat. I think we're gonna call this one here. Um, we're gonna be continuing this game on, this upcoming Thursday. I'm actually excited to continue it. This game is something that I love, quite a lot. As you can tell, I have a few saves. We're actually going to save here. And then we're gonna pick this one up on Thursday, and um, yeah, we're gonna start from right here, and I hope you look forward to it. It's gonna be at the same time as it has been, so 9 a.m. EST, and I hope you swing by or watch it after it's done. The Ghost of You is one of my favorite story-based games, and I hope that listening to it has been enjoyable for you as it has been for me. Thank you all for stopping by, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thank you.